Hi, and welcome to a new video for the ESOL purchasing system. Today in this video, we'll be discussing the annual system setup, which needs to be done per academic year in order to ensure that all the purchase orders and all the details about each school academics is working as usual. In order to access this section, we need to go to miscellaneous, and then we'll start by the academic years. This page is assigned and made in order to make sure that we define the new academic year, which already, as you can see, shows in the regular section over here. So if we click on show all records, for example, we'll find that we have right now we're in the current academic year 2019, and there is the 2020 academic year, which has not started yet, which means it is not in use. The page, as you can see, is already set up with the basic default filters, like for the in use and not in use, and the show records, the number of entries, and the search bar for the grid in front of us. Of course, we need to make sure that is only one academic year is active per time. We cannot have multiple academic years in use at the same time to avoid any conflicts within the academic years. If we're going to be setting up any new academic year for future reference, what we're going to need to do is just click on New Year, give it a code, and a name. So for example, let's say 2021, and then we can say academic year 2020-2021. Once we need to make sure, as we mentioned, to not make it in use since we are currently using the 2019 academic year, and click submit and exit to go out. And you'll see, if we click on show records, that the new academic year is added in the academic year section. As you can see, there is a typo in here, so we need to update it to change it if we want to make it like to 21 and 22. If we click on use and click submit and exit, it will make it the default academic year, which is why we need to make sure, as we mentioned, the only one in use is the current academic year that we are in, which we will use as 2019. Of course, this will display, as you will see, if we go in here and click on the academic year, we can update ourselves by choosing any academic year that we want. For example, if we choose the following academic year and click submit, you will see a message telling us that this is not the current academic year that is assigned within the system because they are not in use. So we need to make sure that we are having the only academic year assigned in the system, and to make sure that each academic year is the only one in use, to follow the rules of the purchasing order, and to make sure each academic year is assigned with its own purchasing orders, with its own configuration, with its own details. And if we're going to be getting back to any previous data or getting back to track back any previous data, all what we're going to need to do is just get back to the previous academic years, and we will see all the data showing in front of us. Getting back to the point of the data, so getting back in miscellaneous, we're going to discuss right now the currencies. It has the default standards template, as you can see, the same as the academic year, the same as all the pages in the ESOL purchasing system. You will find that this page concludes all of the currencies identified for the system to be used with the exchange rate from the main currency, which is, you will see, is the United States dollar. Of course, we can update whatever default currency that we're going to make the exchange rate against. Right now, we're using the US dollar. Of course, we can use any currency from those to be as a point of reference. How we identify that? We'll get to that point. Of course, as you can see, first of all, the page has the standard filters, the in use, the not in use, the show record, the amount of entries, as well as the search bar. If we're going to be adding a new currency by any exchange rate, we can just click on new currency, give it a code. Let's say, for example, let's try to have a look on one of the samples in here, which is, for example, the United Arab Emirates Dirham. We made the shortcut for the code, for the symbol is the same as the code, which is the currency code. And we have the bank exchange rate, as you can see, to the current academic year. This is why we need to make sure that this data is created on an annual basis for each academic year, because in each year, the exchange rate and the amount of currencies required or attached to the purchase order for each academic year might vary, and we can even set a different default for each academic year. It doesn't cause any difference. In order to avoid any conflicts, each year has its own calculation, it has its own purchase order, which will reflect later when we discuss the dashboard, and we'll give you a brief understanding of how this data is shown in the dashboard inside of the ESOL purchasing system. We set as not the default button, but if we go, for example, for the United States dollars, you will find that the symbol and the code, as we mentioned, it's the short version of the code, and the exchange rate is there, which is 1, because this is the exchange rate. This is the one that we're going to make a difference against, and we're going to set it as the default currency. Once we set up all of our currencies, we need to make sure that we set up this school serial assigned by the management and the financial department. In order to make sure that happen, we will get a certain range of numbers from the administration, and as you can see, the school serial is the one identifying the school within its purchase order. For example, let's say the American International School in Abu Dhabi has the starting of 4002. The one in the American International School in Egypt, the West Camp, starting from 3000, and so on and so on. Of course, the page, as you can see, is still having the same standard filter. If we get a new serial or new school joining us, what we need to do is just click on new serial, choose the school that we're going to have, which in this selection you can make a search. For example, let's say Cairo, and this will appear. And we can have a counter here, like by up and down, if we want, if it's a small serial, or if it's a big serial, we can try, for example, 5043 or 50,043. We need to make sure if it's in use or not in use. Let's just make it not in use for our case and example, and click submit and exit. Right now, if we filter by not in use, we will find the one that we created. If we want to delete, we just click on delete and click OK, and the record has been deleted successfully, as you can see within the notification message. This data, it's dependent on each academic year, so we need to make sure that the range of serial numbers is assigned for each proper academic year. In order, if we're going to be tracking back the data at any time, we can make sure that each school has its own portfolio of the purchase order and how it works and how we can trace it through the serial number. Upcoming next, we'll go to the school warehouses. Currently within the system, we use only 2 warehouses. We have the UK warehouse and the US warehouse. Of course, the page, as you can see, has the same standard template for the filters, like the in use, not in use, the entries, and the search bar. At the same time, you will find that the warehouses, it has only containing addresses. So if we click on edit, we will find the addresses of the warehouse if they need to change. In case that we want to keep them in record and we want to create a new like other 2 data for the warehouses, we just click on new, and let's say test address 1, and let's say in here, let's say test address 2, and we, for example, make it not in use. So this currently is showing us the current state of the actual in-use warehouse. If we filter by not in use, it will show the one that created. If we click on show records, it will get us both of them. Of course, as we mentioned, it has the Excel export feature as well as the, let's just show you the Excel export. It is standard within the whole grids of the whole system. And it will show us the same as the data that we have in front of us. If we want to delete, just click on delete and confirm the deletion, and you will find that the record has been deleted. Last and not least, this is all the data that we need to make sure that to have on each academic year in order to make sure, as we mentioned, the purchase order as well as the process of the purchase order has the full correct data to process the purchasing order through the whole cycle that we have discussed previously. Finally, we will discuss the email settings. The email settings is the section within the ESOL purchasing system that is assigned to create and make sure that this is the one responsible for the notification email that the system generates and emails to all of its users regarding any information or regarding any confirmation or refusal for the purchase order, which we discussed previously, of course, how they get an email within the workflow and the workflow steps. First of all, the page of the email account setting is a default grid view. As you can see, it has the name of the account, the email address that we're going to use, the display name for it, if we're going to be using the mail server, because what we're going to be using is an SMTP mail server, so it will require from us to have SMTP mail server configuration with the port number, if it's required SSL or not, and if this is the default one or not by clicking in use. If we have a new setting or a new email, we just click on new, create the account name, the email address, the username, the server name, description, and display name and password and port number, etc., etc. And in that section below, this is the default message that will be sent as a signature for each of the emails sent to the users. Of course, this is completely editable, and you can put any information that you want with any picture or any signature, as you can see. If we're going to get back to the default one to have a quick look of how it looks, the email is set up, the username, the server, the display name, the description, as well as the port number, and if it's enabled by the SSL or not. This signature, if we send an email from any step, it will come to the users in that format with this amount of signature that you can input any picture in the signature if you want to make sure that it's fully formal email to be sent to the all users. To recap, we have discussed the academic year and how it's set up within the system on each academic year, the currencies, which is the actual currencies, the required, and the exchange, and how it's based on which one is the default one for each academic year, if it's going to be the US dollar, the pound sterling, the Saudi riyal, whatever currency that your team and your school would like to choose for the system, we can make it happen. And then afterwards, the serial number, which is assigned per academic year for each school, and the school warehouses that identify the addresses for the whole ESOL purchasing system warehouses in the UK or the US. And finally, the email settings for the email configuration that we need to make in order to ensure that this is the email that sends the notification to all of the process and all of the users within the ESOL purchasing system. Until the next video, wish you a nice time.